BBC Radio Suffolk
with Leslie Dolphin.
We've got Dr. Mark Shenton with us. He is a GP with Stowe Care, so he may be your doctor. He's also the chairman of the new clinical commissioning group for Ipswich and East Suffolk, which sounds very complicated, but I'm sure is extremely simple. We'll talk a bit about that as well. My guest today is Dr. Mark Shenton. He's a GP at Stowe Health, although I have to say, grew up in George Gently country, and I don't think you have the accent, do you?
Well, I suppose it's whether I'm down here or up there, maybe.
No, you've lost your accent. That's sad. I quite like the accent from George Gently country. Do you watch it and sort of reminisce the programme?
I have done, and it is nice to see it. I mean, it's sort of from the time when I was a very small child, but I'm still up there regularly because my family are still up there, and I still love going up there.
It's funny because my son's just been to Durham University and he's not now, but he was sitting watching it saying, oh, I think I saw them filming that bit, and oh, look, they're in the cathedral for that bit.
Yeah, indeed.
So you grew up in that part of the world, did you?
Yes, I'm in Tynedale, which is the sort of county part of Northumberland to the west of Newcastle. Although I was born in Newcastle and I had my first few months there, and my family are very much from Newcastle. But yeah, I spent my time growing up in the countryside of Northumberland.
So you're a country boy.
I am a country boy.
How did you end up in Suffolk? Because I think you've lived here quite a while, haven't you?
Yeah, well, we've been down here over 20 years. When I finished my training as a medical student and got into doing my first jobs, I met my now wife, and she was on a training scheme in Bury St Edmunds, and I said, OK, I'll come down, I'll get a job at Ipswich, and we'll probably be here for 2 or 3 years, and then maybe we'll move somewhere else, and 21 years later, we're still here. You're
still here. She's a GP as well, isn't she?
She is, yeah.
How do you manage as a family? That must be a real juggle.
It is a big juggle. Carrie works 3 days a week as a GP, but 24 hours a day as a mum and family worker, and we juggle how the family works, and everyone's up first thing in the morning, and everyone gets to go where they need to be.
Between you, though, wherever you go, you must bump into people. Because you see, for me, I sort of think, I know that person now. Where do I know them from? You must do that all the time.
Well, I suppose I do. Although, once you're out of the Stowmarket area, you're just another face. So it's fine.
Do you find people still ask you, though, you're at parties, do you keep secret that you're doctors? Or because people, they do it, don't they? They always do it. Say, just while you're here, I've just got this little mark on my ear or whatever.
Yeah, there's always great opportunities at parties to take that kind of thing on.
So do you lie? Do you pretend? Do you not tell people? I don't always admit what I do.
No, I wouldn't say I was that defensive.
So, and I think when you were young, it's what you always wanted to do, wasn't it?
Yeah, I can't really remember wanting to do anything else. I liked maybe the thought of flying aeroplanes or being in the Royal Navy, but I could do that as a doctor if I wanted. I even toyed with the idea, but never really took it up. But the doctoring was what I wanted to do. So
does that mean you were quite focused through school because you knew you had to do it?
I suppose I was, though I wouldn't say it was my reason for going to school. I enjoyed school. I liked the variety of things I was able to do. I enjoyed learning. I enjoyed the sport, and I was lucky enough to get what I needed to go to where I wanted to go to do my training.
Was it quite tough? Because I think people say it's actually harder to get into veterinary college than it is to get into medical school. I'm not sure if that's right.
I think it is true that, though I think it's got a lot tougher for medical school than when I was applying. There seems to be a lot more things they're looking for some reason, and the grade levels are very, very high to get in. But back then, I enjoyed the challenge, and going to medical school. I chose my own town in the end because I got an opportunity to go to other places as well, but thought, this is the place for me.
So was it the place rather than the college, or the...
It was both. What was being offered at the university, to me, had a lot more attraction. A much more rounded approach to learning and what they were asking you to learn. So there was a lot of general practice involvement right from the very first day that just seemed to make learning medicine much more relevant.
So where did you go?
I was at Newcastle University.
You did go to Newcastle.
Yeah.
Because from looking at your notes about yourself, you were quite independent from quite young on. Because you went off on holidays, didn't you, when you were quite young as well, on your own, didn't you?
Yeah, I had friends who were also interested in going off camping, youth hosteling, and it was a very straightforward thing to do. Get on your bike, get a train, and have a week or two away doing your own thing. And that made life easy for everyone, and it made my life very enjoyable as well.
And you've travelled loads over the years. That hasn't stopped, has it?
No, and having children hasn't stopped us travelling. I think our youngest was only 5 weeks old when we went to the States, and we've been across the continents. It is a very interesting bit of life that we wish to pursue, and we're not going to stop.
So if you won the lottery, travelling would be the thing, would it?
I don't need to win the lottery to make travelling the thing. I'm not put off whether it's a lorry, a bus, a train, a car.
Don't mind roughing it.
I don't mind roughing it. Being out on the road and seeing different places, different communities is great. It's a great privilege, really.
Where's the best place you've been?
Oh, that's a really tough one.
I know.
I think one of probably for the family and for me as a consequence, probably our trip across southern Africa in a lorry for 3 weeks was a great revelation. Just seeing how different things are, but how much you can get involved and how much you can rough it.
Have you done sort of been abroad and used to take your medical skills as well ever? Have you done that? Because I know a lot of doctors do when they've got the time. And with family, it's difficult, isn't it? But
it is. Before we started our family, we took a year away, and we worked for 6 months in outback Australia, a small base hospital in a mining town, which was a fantastic time. I think we were only about 3 years post medical school at that stage, so really fairly junior, but we were amongst the most senior people in the hospital, and the hospital was 1,000 kilometres away from the next hospital.
So you had to deal with, at that instance, pretty much anything, didn't you? If it came to you, you were the one that was in charge, really.
Yeah, I know. As 3 years out of medical school, doing a bit of surgery, having to deal with stab wounds, major head injuries, it was orthopaedic fractures, was a very big challenge.
Didn't have anything sort of extreme like snake bites to deal with, did you?
Yeah, we had snake bites regularly, spider bites, poisonous spiders, and major injuries. I saw more major injury in a small outback mining town in 6 months than I did in 2 years at Ipswich Hospital.
Because I guess you don't see that much in Stowmarket, do you?
Not much in Stowmarket, no. But yeah, major traffic injuries, people running into cattle and kangaroos, or just running off the road. A lot of drunken activity as well.
That's fascinating. We'll come back and we'll talk more in a little while, because I'm intrigued to know why it was you chose general practice in particular. I think you decide that as you go through your medical school, don't you? And we'll talk a bit about the new commissioning scheme as well, because I think GPs more involved in sort of sorting out the work that you're going to be involved in. But you can explain that better for me, hopefully. Dr. Mark Shenton, our guest on the sofa today. So, bedside manner. Did you get lessons in that when you were at university or at college?
Yes.
Oh, do you?
Yep.
Oh, maybe someone give me some.
And ongoing.
Is it? But it's quite a skill, isn't it? I guess, especially in your surgery as well, is to try and get people to open up as quickly as possible.
Well, consultation skills are what you start learning at my college. That's what we started learning on day one. And you continue doing it through your time there, and you continue doing it now. As part of general practice training, consultation skills are an absolute must.
I'd never thought that I sort of was joking, but I suppose they are a must, aren't they?
Yeah. You have to. If you don't listen, if you don't understand what someone's trying to tell you, then you're not going to be able to help them.
It's very interesting. Let's talk a bit about you before we talk more about being a GP, because I'm intrigued that you're quite a musical family, weren't you? Your dad had a jazz band. You were a chorister.
Yes, I was.
Where were you a chorister?
At Ovington Parish Church. And I was got through to being a head chorister there, and we used to participate in big choral events at York Minster, Durham Cathedral, and I even got to go down to the Royal Albert Hall for the Royal School of Church Music event with the Queen Mother there, and all very exciting as a youngster.
So, and when your voice broke, was that when you stopped, or?
No, at school I carried on being in the school choir, and we did quite big events there as well.
So are you still into music?
More in the listening than playing, but my eldest son is very much into music. He's into his jazz. He plays in a jazz band at school, and a saxophone ensemble, and Ipswich Musician Union. So he's got a very proud granddad.
So I was going to say, his granddad, that must be very chuffed, is he, as well? Yeah,
very.
Tell me about deciding to be a GP. But was that something you always wanted to do, or was it something you chose as you went through medical school?
I can't say that it was something I chose right from the start. Medicine is such an enormous church of different things that you can do, and you get to have a bit of a taster of a bit of each bit of it as you go through medical school, because that's part of your training. I decided to do general practice when I was away in Australia, seeing a broad variety of things as I was doing over there. Prior to that, I'd done a number of specialty jobs within Ipswich Hospital, and then when I came back at the West Suffolk Hospital, and joined the vocational scheme at Bury after I came back from Australia, which means learning how to be a general practitioner by doing work in general practice, and making sure you had a range of specialty jobs under your belt that meant that you could deal with as much as you can as a general practitioner. But being a general practitioner means learning something every day.
And it's a huge, and these days, especially with medicine, it's a huge field to try and keep on top of, isn't it?
Well, it is. I mean, they say a consultant knows more and more about less and less until he knows everything about nothing. And GPs know less and less about more and more until they know nothing about everything. And, you do sometimes have that feeling when you're presented with something that's completely new to you in the consulting room. But the internet's a great thing.
I was going to say, but
we have computers in our room. We share the experience with patients. We go sometimes looking together.
So do patients come in with their sort of say, I found this on the internet, so this is what I've got?
Yes, and lists that are sometimes as long as our family shopping list on a weekend. But, the challenge is there to work through it with them, and find out what's most important to them that's dealt with, and make sure you try and deal with as much of it as you can.
So it must have changed hugely since you were first a GP.
It has. Computers have taken over much more. When I first started, you used a computer to generate a prescription. Now the whole clinical record is there to add to letters, results of investigations. The consultation that we have is all computer generated. It's there in front of us. We don't have the notes the paper notes out anymore.
Is it better? Does it make you easier to do your job?
It does in the main, though it's not as easy to navigate the way a paper record was, in that, you know, it was a very small piece of card that you had, which basically were headlines that you worked on. Now it's much more comprehensive. So sometimes finding your way through to where the relevant bit of information you're looking for can be a little bit more difficult, but generally the computer system has revolutionised things, and the way that the records in computer systems transfer from one practice to another, so that if someone comes to me now, instead of waiting 2 or 3 months for their record to come through,
if they've been on ages.
Yeah, if they were previously at a practice on the same system, it's there.
Yeah, because it takes 6 months or something, wouldn't it? It could do in the past.
It could do, yeah.
So, but I guess the thing that is still there is that you're dealing with people, and that's the important bit.
It is. Medicine is a people kind of job, and some elements of medicine are more people orientated than others, or so it feels. But general practice is very much it's about people, and it's about their context. It's about their families. It's about understanding where they are in their own world.
Once upon a time, this is in the olden days, when I was young, you would see your doctor and your doctor would know your family. These days it's not quite like that, isn't it? That must make your job tougher as well, because in the past you'd have known the history of Mrs. or Mr. So-and-so when they came in.
Yeah, and I never thought I'd get to the stage where I was one of those doctors saying, oh yes, and Mrs. So-and-so, I remember this and this happened in their family, and this is what you're seeing as a consequence of that. But after 17 years, I am starting to say those sorts of things to my younger colleagues, which I think is always a bit strange. But I think it is still very relevant, and Suffolk as a place, it's more mobile than it maybe was, but it's still a very stable population that we have in Suffolk in general.
So you do get to see families
do get to see
as well. Tell me what it's like having to deal with the money side of things. There's a lot of publicity these days, isn't there, in the media? But once upon a time, it was probably much simpler. Medicine didn't cost as much. There weren't the drugs to choose between and so on. And these days, you have to be a businessman as well, don't you?
Well, we are businessmen in that each practice is a business in its own right. The business of doing healthcare for patients is different to what we do in terms of running our business. So the business of healthcare is how much does it cost to see a doctor in the outpatient department, to have a hip replacement, to prescribe a particular drug over another one. That's a responsibility that has been placed with us for some time in terms of helping to manage that budget that the health service has, because it isn't a bottomless pit of money. We do have to work within constraints that are financial. Our question is, how do we get the best out of that pound that we have to spend for the best for the population of Suffolk when you're at a higher commissioning level, as it were. But as a GP as well, where do we fit in to that as an individual GP having a consultation with a patient in the room? And that's where it's all got a little bit more difficult.
Well, I was going to say, because and do you sort of sit in your head, do you have to think about whether you're going to prescribe this or that because of the cost, or can you just prescribe what you think?
You can prescribe what you think to a certain degree. There are medications that you can't prescribe on the NHS, and there are medications that you can only prescribe under certain circumstances on the NHS. But there are times where you can make choices between drugs that mean that instead of spending £20, you're spending £1.20. And that's where we have to look at what is the sensible decision here. And that means us knowing what those sensible decisions are.
It's a huge field, isn't it, to know?
It is.
Not just how to deal with people and how to make them better, but to know the latest drugs that are on the market and so on. You're the chair of the new clinical commissioning group. Do you want to explain for me, if you can, so that I understand it, what that all means?
Well, a clinical commissioning group is what came out of the NHS reforms that have just gone through the coalition government. And the idea was about GPs who have their expertise of knowing their patients, their local populations, working together, not just as individual practices, but large groups of practices, to decide how do we get the best out of our NHS pounds for the benefit of our population. So it is trying to take that GP patient consultation to GP's population. This is what we need to try and do to get the best for health for our population. And the CCG, the Clinical Commissioning Group, has a role in commissioning services from hospitals, from the voluntary sector, from community services, from the private sector, to get that best value for patients. And we as GPs can work together to try and help find the best way through a particular pathway to get the best value for our pounds.
Is it giving you more power to your elbow as doctors? Is it a good thing for you?
It definitely has. It's also tried to help join up services better. Primary care in the form of general practice, secondary care in the form of consultants in hospitals were quite separate for some time, in a way that they maybe hadn't been 20 years ago. And now there's a great opportunity for GPs and consultants to talk together about what is the best way for a patient with a problem with their hip to get the treatment that they need, so that the consultants and GPs, people involved in that patient's health, know that that patient is getting the best that they can.
Do you sometimes wish you could go to the outback in Australia, where it seems much more straightforward? You just simply deal with the people that come in.
Actually, the outback in Australia was even tougher, because you were responsible for the budget of the hospital, and the medical director needed to know if you were going to call in the flying doctor service to ship someone out at the cost of $30,000, that was absolutely necessary to happen.
It's just a bit more black and white, was it, or not? I don't know. It feels it. You must.
Yeah.
You must sometimes wonder, though, the sort of the paperwork on that hand and people on the other.
Yeah. Well, I think this is where you have an opportunity to put the people in the centre and the paperwork around the side, because it may be seen that too much has been about the paperwork and not enough about the patient. And I think we've got a great opportunity to think about the patient in the middle, and how do we make things work for them.
And we were saying earlier on, challenges, of course, these days of communication, technology, Twitter, Facebook, all those sorts of things.
Yeah, and we need to know how to best engage people using them. Our recent public event, we had 350 people there. There were 650,000 people missing because they weren't there in Suffolk. So how do we get the views of everyone, not just the ones who think they should turn up? And we need to put our minds to that, because some of the big problems we face are the ones that actually it's the public and patients that have the answers, not us.
And I know last week there was I think it was last week or earlier this week, there was the big report out suggesting that, people complaining about GPs, more people unhappy. And one of the comments from a representative of our GPs was, please just talk to us. Is that what you would say as well?
Yes, we've also got to understand, how do people want to talk to us? Because
how do you do it?
Yeah, is it on the telephone? Is it email? Is it Twitter, Facebook? We have to explore all of those angles. Complaints have gone up. There's no doubt about that. Is it because health is worse or healthcare is worse? There doesn't seem to be evidence for that. So it's how do we communicate and make things happen as a consequence of comment or complaint. And not just defend ourselves, but actually say, no, we can make that better. This is what we should do. Or say, how should we make it better? What are your thoughts on this? Because we can't do this by ourselves. We have to do this as a population. We have to understand how we all tick. We're never going to satisfy everyone. You're never going to be in that position. But I think unless you ask questions and ask for views, you're not going to be able to understand it.
So even if you don't like all the views, it's worth asking anyway.
Absolutely.
Do you still enjoy being a GP? Are you glad you're a GP?
I very much enjoy it. It's my reason for getting up in the morning. It's a stressful job, but that's the expectation of the job. I really enjoy the face-to-face contact I have with my patients, and I get a great deal out of helping people. Service is something that I enjoy. Trying to make things better is something that I always try and strive for, and I look forward to continue doing that.
Yeah, because you see people on a day-to-day basis and you don't know what the problem is that's going to come through the door, and hopefully you can help, although you must see your own fair share as well of sadness. Yes,
well, it's the whole emotion, isn't it? It's cradle to grave. It's everything in between. And yeah, you're right, you don't know what's going to come in the door next. You might be able to know what most people might be coming up with, but you're never that sure. It's only until they're sat in the chair and you say, OK, here we go.
Well, thank you for coming in and having a chat with us. Was my bedside manner sort of all right? Did I do the right things? You give me any tips?
Most definitely. The eye contact was very good.
Excellent. No one can see that on radio, can they? Thank you very much for coming in. It's really interesting. And maybe sometime you could come in if you want to talk to people. BBC Radio Suffolk on our mid-morning show, we often put people in the hot seats. Maybe you'd like to come and sit in the hot seat.
I always feel I'm in a hot seat.
Thank you for being with us. That's Dr. Mark Shenton with us from Stowe Health.